So, mandatory disclaimer, this is just Dan's opinion. I fully expect that most of you will disagree with at least some of this. Some of you may disagree with all of it, and if so, too bad, no cookie for you. But the goal is to help us think together as you prepare for this increasingly scary, uncertain, different future, and to emerge with some tools and some things that you'll be able to do that can help you do better. So to really blow your minds and show you how sophisticated I am, can I just kind of wipe you out with an amazing computer-generated image? I blew millions of our company money. I went to Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas's company, to create the graphic that's going to just knock you. Okay, here it is. That's it. So if you're taking notes, and I hope you are, draw a little stick figure, and this stick figure should represent you. And this is an analog for some of the things we can be working on from now on, not only through Owen, but throughout our lives, to become better able to cope with an increasingly uncertain world. Each one of these body parts is going to represent something important. One of the legs represents what we might call self-knowledge, self-awareness. Socrates said, know thyself. Know thyself. Most of us feel like we know ourselves. But most of our self-knowledge comes from situations we've already been involved with. Who here has ever discovered that when you're in a new situation, you see yourself sometimes differently? I think we've all had that. This is what happens when we emerge from comfort zones. You will emerge from comfort zones this year at Owen. You'll be in situations where you're not sure you can actually handle it. But you would not have been admitted if you couldn't handle it. So it's an important part of self-knowledge to know what you can in fact do. I gave very little thought to this when I was growing up and going through high school until I was in college and someone recommended I read a book by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist in pre-war Vienna. He was a member of high society. He was highly respected. He was very, very wealthy. Viktor Frankl also happened to be Jewish. And when the Nazis swept through, he was taken prisoner along with every member of his family and everyone he knew, and he was put into what was arguably the worst of the death camps, a place called Auschwitz. But the odds against survival in Auschwitz were stark. For every 28 inmates that entered, only one survived the war. Frankl was not physically the strongest, and at one point he nearly gave up. He was so debilitated, so abused, that he almost lost his will. He learned that his wife had died in the camps, he learned that his children had died, and he began to watch so many of his friends die and simply give up. But something triggered in him. He was a trained psychologist, and he began to wonder, why is this person dying? And this person who is weaker physically, not giving up? And he began to ask them questions, and he discovered there was something in common. Each of the people that managed to survive had an incredibly powerful reason to survive. And Frankl was so horrified by what had happened in the camps that he made a decision that he was going to survive no matter what. His goal was to write a book about what happened in the camps. He said, people need to know what happened here. And if I don't survive, at least myself survive, then maybe nobody will survive and nobody will write what happened here. It's an incredible purpose. And from that moment forward, it was clear in his mind that he would survive. When he was liberated and eventually rehabilitated, Frankl did write the book. The book is called Man's Search for Meaning. I recommend it to everyone, particularly people in your generation. And one of the most powerful quotes that came from the book was this one. When we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to do what? Change ourselves. Almost everything in the camp was in the category of things that needed to be simply accepted. But what he could control was how to change himself, his attitudes, and his desire to live. Self-knowledge comes when we are willing to analyze and evaluate and think about ourselves. It's not easy to do because we often lapse into self-pity and self-criticism. And so that's not pleasant, so we shift gears. Or sometimes when we think about how great everything's going, we don't go below the surface to say, how am I reacting to this? How am I responding to this? Self-knowledge can only be improved if we get ourselves into new situations where we have to be tested and stretched. I hope at some point this fall you go through a bit of a crisis. Not because I'm cruel, but because when we go through great challenges and great difficulties, we have to dig a little deeper. We've got to see what's down there. What am I really all about? And check that out. Sometimes we're very objective about ourselves, but most of us are not. So find somebody that you trust that can help you, and that can become a mentor, somebody that can give you insights and guidance to help become more of the kind of person that you want to become. New situations always cause us to develop more self-knowledge. There's no question about it. And here at Owen, you'll be in many of those new situations. So learn to find the strength that's within, because that will always be there for you. And our other leg is people knowledge. We talked about a little bit of that this morning. How to understand human nature just a little bit better, how to communicate, how to get along with people, simply how to relate. What if I could teach you a really simple way, with one finger, you could get much better at understanding human nature? Who's down? One finger, one quick move. Here it is. This is the quick move. Most of us love our devices. I love my device. But whoever has found in conversations that these become barriers? In other words, every year on Valentine's Day, it's an interesting phenomenon all around the world. People go out. And let's say that we've gone out to eat, and you sit down, and I sit down, and my phone sits down, and your phone sits down, and my 317 friends, and your 2,045 friends. And you can see this in restaurants all over. It doesn't have to be Valentine's Day. Somebody's in an animated conversation, and then suddenly they're, oh, wow, man, oh, that's like awesome. hang on. Ever seen that happen? And so what does this convey to the person that we are ostensibly having dinner with? A complete and total disregard that you're interesting to me only unless I get a better offer. And one of the challenges of being so digitally connected all the time is that we fail to be where we are. And one of the best ways to understand human nature is to go long periods of time where you are phone-free voluntarily. Now, the first time that happened to me, it was not voluntary. I must confess, I was in the restroom, and my phone went into the place of swirling waters. That was a highly embarrassing moment. I was not going to go after it. There it went, gone. And I felt as though the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. It's like, my life is in that phone. My contacts, my message. And this was in a time when it wasn't so easy to just walk down and replace a phone. And I remember thinking, okay, I've lost my phone. I don't have any insurance. It's going to be expensive to replace it. You know, I'm just going to go without it for a little while. And at first, it was the most disorienting sense in the world. How am I going to get around? How am I going to find things? What am I going to do? And then something odd happened. It became very liberating. And I began to enjoy looking at my path as I walked instead of looking at my hand. I noticed the tops of buildings. I noticed green grass. I saw birds that were not angry. It was a whole new experience. And it took me a little bit of effort to go ahead and get another phone because it was such a fun time. So every once in a while, I would encourage you to have phone-free days. Just leave the thing at home. And although the first 30 minutes or so is going to be like, oh, where am I? It gets to be kind of a really cool experience, which can be very, very enjoyable too. Unfortunately, too many people take more photos of their food than enjoy their food. Too many people sit sharing a YouTube video together than they do actually expressing something. Too many people send somebody a like digitally instead of just reaching out to them and saying, I like what you did that day. So understanding human nature often means just being a student of it. I'd suggest at some point, take a little break, sit in a crowded room, and try to study people on the opposite side of the room that are conversing. You can't hear them. Try to guess what their conversation is about from their body language, from their facial expression. Are they in tune? Are they arguing? Are they fighting? Are they laughing? And just enjoy that whole process of understanding people. Most of us hang out with the same kind of people. You're going to meet all kinds of new people over the next few weeks. My encouragement is to try to spend time with different types of people as much as you can, especially those that challenge you. And spend as much time as possible with people that are of different generations, different cultural backgrounds, because that helps us grow and expand in a great way. I love this quote. Life is not lived in the glow of a monitor. It's not a series of status updates, and it's not about your friend count. It's about friends you can count on. That sounds like a philosopher, right? An anti-tech person, actually written by the chairman of Google. So people is what it's really about, and understanding human nature cannot be helped because of a device, but it can definitely be enriched by spending that time with people.